229,545 stars, one GitHub repository, 13 months old. And when I pulled that number myself to check it, somebody had pushed new code to it 2 minutes earlier. Now here's the strange part. If you know the name Nous Research at all, you probably know it from crypto, a network that trains AI models across the open internet, coordinated by smart contracts on Solana, and a token people have been waiting on for more than a year. That repository isn't any of that. So Douglas Quaid put it on our request board. Nous, the post said, works on making AI development more open, more distributed, and more accessible, instead of leaning entirely on the giants. Then a follow-up asking about the airdrop and a token on Solana. So we went and checked. Not the press releases, the papers, the source code, and the chain itself. And what we found is better than the rumor. And look, this video exists because someone asked. That's the Motion Room, our Discord. Post a project in the request board and I'll go dig. Regulars get the early access channel, where every new video lands before it's public. Come make it yours, so we all learn this stuff together. And the newsletter's one email every Friday. Links in the description. So where does this actually come from? And the honest answer is a Discord server. Co-founder Karan Malhotra tells it himself. Quote, Nous was just me and Technium at the time. Just two guys hanging out in our little Discord server. Malhotra had been volunteering around the open source scene and somehow had access to 8 A100 nodes. Technium was already an acquaintance from Twitter. So the message went out, and it was basically, hey, I've got 8 A100s. Do you want to train something together? And the receipts line up with the story almost to the week. The first model ever published under the Nous Research account went up on HuggingFace on the 6th of May, 2023. The Hermes name, the thing they're now known for, arrives a month later, 3rd of June. Nobody in that Discord was a professional AI researcher. Technium, by Malhotra's account, had been coding for under a year. Malhotra was a religion major. So when rival labs started saying, you must be cheating, you must be training on the benchmarks, they genuinely did not know what a benchmark was. And then independent testers checked, and the models were the best open fine-tunes anybody had. That volunteer crowd grew to about 40 researchers, and out of it came YARN, the context window technique that a lot of the industry still uses. Today, Nous is a funded company with a CEO, Dylan Rolnick, and the mission line on their own homepage hasn't softened at all. Quote, our mission is to advance human rights and freedoms by creating and proliferating open source language models. That's the company. Now let's talk about the thing they invented. Okay, so here's the problem they went after, and it's a beautiful one. When you train a big model across a lot of GPUs, every single step, every chip has to tell every other chip what it learned. One number for every parameter. That is an enormous amount of traffic, and it's exactly why frontier training happens inside one building with fiber between the racks. Nous measured the baseline themselves, a 1.2 billion parameter model on 32 H100s was moving 74 gigabytes per GPU per step. You cannot do that over home internet, ever. So the idea they had is the one on screen, and it's their own analogy. It's JPEG. When you compress a photo, you convert it into frequencies, and you discover almost all the picture lives in a handful of low frequencies. Throw the rest away and your eye can barely tell. Their optimizer, called Demo, runs literally the same transform, a discrete cosine transform, but on the momentum, the running average of what the model is learning. Keep the biggest few coefficients, ship those, drop the rest. And here's the clever bit, the part that makes it honest rather than lossy. Whatever you send gets subtracted from your local buffer. So anything you dropped isn't deleted, it's just queued. It goes out later. Nothing is lost. it's only delayed. Now, the paper behind this has a co-author worth pausing on. Diederik Kingma. That's the person who wrote Atom, the optimizer that trains basically every large model on Earth. That name is on the paper arguing you can throw away almost all of the traffic. And that's not a marketing line. I checked the author list on Archive myself. So what do the numbers actually come out at? And where does the blockchain come in? Two different numbers get quoted, and people mix them up constantly, so let's be precise. The famous one is 857 times. That's real, and it's Noose's own measurement, but it's from their preliminary DisTrO report, not the academic paper. Same 1.2 billion model, 32 H100s. Standard training moved 74 gigabytes per step. Theirs moved 87 megabytes. 857 times less, and the final loss came out slightly better, not worse. But their own table shows the cost, and almost nobody quotes this. That run took 19.8 hours instead of 17.1, about 16% slower. They bought bandwidth with time. Then the peer-reviewed paper, revised this February, reports a more conservative headline, up to 85 times, at the setting where accuracy doesn't move at all. 7.5 megabytes instead of 637. Both numbers are true. They're just different runs. Now the network. It's called Psyche, and this diagram is the whole thing. On the right, on Solana, sits a coordinator contract. It holds who's in the run, whose turn it is, the random seed that decides who trains which data, and who checks the work. That's kilobytes. On the left, every GPU node. The actual gradients, the megabytes, go peer-to-peer, directly between machines, and never touch the chain. So Solana here is the scoreboard and the referee's whistle. It is not the field. And that's genuinely the right use of a chain. You need strangers to agree on turn order without a company in the middle, and that's a small, cheap thing to put on a ledger. So now the part Douglas Quaid actually asked about. And I want to do this carefully because the truth here is more interesting than either the hype or the dunk. First, there is no Nous token, no ticker, no launch date, no official airdrop, anywhere on their site or their account. What is real is this. Psyche's contracts genuinely do track compute contribution as points, and there's an escrow contract where whoever creates a run can fund it with, in their words, an arbitrary token, a rewards rail with no coin attached to it. Meanwhile, there are already impostor tokens using the Nous name on Solana and on Base, and a viral post claiming an official launch that did not come from Nous. So just be careful out there. Second, this page is the coordinator contract, and I pulled it from the chain myself. It exists on Solana DevNet, not mainnet. Nous links it as DevNet themselves, so this isn't a gotcha. It's a testnet, and DevNet Sol isn't worth anything, which means the reward economics are untested with real money. Third, and this is the one I respect them most for, their docs describe 3 jobs a node can do: train, witness, and verify. Witnessing works, but it only proves a result arrived, not that it's correct. And if you open the coordinator source, the verifier branch is literally the word to do, unimplemented. Their own architecture post says it out loud. Quote, "We've developed a theoretical model for verification, but a practical implementation is still an open problem. And the reason is physics, not laziness. 2 identical GPUs can disagree on the last decimal of the same multiplication. So you can't check for an exact match, only for similarity. And nobody's calibrated that threshold yet, which is why the network is still permissioned. That's an honest engineering answer, published by the people it embarrasses. So here's where it resolves, and it's not where I expected. Let's finish the Psyche story first, fairly. The flagship was Consilience, 40 billion parameters, trained from scratch across the internet, and released under CC0. Actual public domain for a 40 billion parameter model. But the checkpoint stopped updating a year ago, well short of the token target. and the live dashboard didn't answer when we tried it today. Now that is not the same as dead. I pulled the coordinator's transaction history straight off the chain, and it logged successful witness and tick instructions on the 27th of July, 16 days ago. Quiet, not gone, and the ledger is the only place that would have told you that. And the real win already shipped. Hermes 4.3, a 36 billion parameter model, was post-trained end-to-end on Psyche, 24 nodes, 144,000 tokens a second. And they trained the same model twice, once decentralized and once on a normal 64 GPU cluster, then published both, including the one that lost, with the raw evaluation output. The decentralized version came out level or slightly ahead on every published task. Read that as parity. Decentralizing it cost them nothing measurable, which is the whole ballgame. Then look at this page. Hermes agent, MIT licensed, opened in July of last year. 229,545 stars, 45,000 forks, 2,377 contributors, 21,000 commits, and one landed while I was screenshotting it. NVIDIA and Microsoft named it in the RTX Spark launch, with Noos's CEO quoted in NVIDIA's own newsroom. Open, distributed, accessible. Douglas Quaid called it exactly right. It just arrived through the front door. Nobody was watching. So this whole table is the arc, in order. The DisTrO report in 2024. The demo paper a few months later. Psyche in May 2025. And then Hermes 4.3 in December, with the line right there. Post-trained entirely on the Psyche network. That's a lab that publishes the thing before it sells the thing. And here's what you can actually do with that today for free without buying anything. The Consilience 40B weights are on HuggingFace under CC0. Hermes 4.3, the model that came off the decentralized network, is right there under Apache 2. Both papers are free, and the DisTrO one is 7 pages, so you genuinely can read it tonight. And the node docs live inside the repo as Markdown. The docs site is down, the documentation isn't. Links to all of it in the description. Douglas Quaid, thank you for this one. Genuinely a great request, and your read on them was right. On the token question, the straight answer is there isn't one yet, and anything trading under the name today isn't theirs. If a project you follow deserves this treatment, drop it on the request board in the motion room. Subscribe if precision is what you're here for, and I'll see you in the next one.